Hey everyone, I'm Alex. You're watching Big Al Books. Trying out a new setup today. One of my favorite things to do while watching people's booktube channels is to creep the bookcases that are behind people while they're talking, so I thought I'd give everyone the opportunity to do that with me, even though I have to sit on the floor, but whatever. So this video is all about the book-related goals that I have for 2017, and I'm making it for two reasons. The first of which is that I am a still very new channel and I'd like people to know more about me and what they can expect on this channel, so some of the stuff specifically that I'm planning on getting to soon. And number two is to make me more accountable because I'm pretty good at slacking off on goals. So hopefully committing to reading these books on the internet will make me actually follow through. So here are some of the books that I'm looking forward to reading this year. Alright, so starting off this list, we have two classics, the first of which is Don Quixote, which as a fan of the modern novel, I feel like I just have to read it. Sooner or later it has to happen, so why not now? This is apparently a bit of a big deal in the book world, whatever. So even though it's old as hell, you just gotta do it. If you want to understand where the novel started and where it's gone to, this is the one, apparently. I've actually already started it, and it is surprisingly funny and enjoyable, so that's nice. Even though it's 1,000 pages long, I'm hoping it's going to be enjoyable the whole way through, and I'm also taking an open Yale course, which I did last year when I was reading Dante's Divine Comedy, and it really helped me understand the work better, so I'm hoping the same thing will happen with Don Quixote. The next classic I want to get to is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. I just recently read Villette by Charlotte Bronte. I adore Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, but I have never given Anne a chance, so I would like to rectify that this year. I'm not sure what this novel's about too much aside from an abusive relationship, but that sounds stormy and fun, which is what I look for in the Brontes. So yeah, I'm coming for you, Anne. Next up, we have The Tin Drum by Günter Grass, which is a German modern classic. It's about this man who stunts his growth at 3 feet and only screams and plays a drum. And it's about the Nazi regime and I think the aftermath of all that. So it's definitely going to be twisted and weird. It's also the first in the Berlin trilogy, so I would like to read the whole thing. So that means once I finish The Tin Drum, I'd like to get to Cat and Mouse and Dog Years. Another series I'd like to start this year is the Seven Dreams series by William T. Vollmann. This is the first novel in it, called The Iceshirt. And William T. Vollmann is a weird and intriguing author. Apparently the FBI has like this huge file on him because they thought that he was the Unabomber. So yeah, he's a weird guy, and he's also incredibly prolific. So he has all these like huge books and they're quite intellectually demanding, so it's hard to get started with this author, but I did read his collection of short stories last year called Last Stories and Other Stories, and I did like it, so I'm excited to keep going with him. The Seven Dreams series deals with first contact between indigenous people of North America and the European settlers who crossed over and created a lot of mayhem, to put it mildly. So each book covers a different span of history. The Iceshirt deals with the Vikings, and The Rifles is about an Arctic expedition, and Argyle is a retelling of the Captain John Smith Pocahontas story, which, if I know Vollmann, is going to be a bajillion times more disturbing than the Disney movie. So these are just 3 of the books in the series. I think he's planning on there being 7 of them, but the series isn't finished yet. So I don't want to finish the whole thing this year. I just would really like to get started and finish The Iceshirt. While we're on the theme of colonialism, I've been trying to read more books by Indigenous authors, and I've read a lot by authors from various First Nations and Métis backgrounds, but I've yet to read anything by an Inuit author, so I'd like to rectify that this year. I have Sanap, which is apparently the first Inuit novel. The author apparently reshaped the language and created characters in order to be able to tell her story in her language, so this is obviously a translation. But I'm looking forward to learning more about a traditional way of life in an Inuit community, as well as how colonialism has threatened that way of life. In this book, I think that takes shape in the form of 2 missionaries. I also have The Right to Be Cold by Sheila Watt Cloutier, who is well known for being an advocate about environmental protection in the North and preserving Inuit culture as well. So this should be a pretty fascinating memoir. She's going to talk about her upbringing in the North, as well as her career and the different difficulties she's overcome. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's also one of the Canada Reads 2017 longlisted books, so hopefully a lot of other people will be reading it too. I think in Canada we ignore the North far too often, so hopefully reading some of these books will help change my perspective. Some other nonfiction titles that I'm looking forward to reading this year are The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. I want to be more of a badass feminist, and I feel like this is the perfect place to start. I also have the collected essays by James Baldwin, which doesn't look like much, but it's actually 850 pages. So there's a lot of ideas crammed in here. I love Baldwin's prose, and I think a lot of his ideas are very relevant regarding race relations in America, especially today. So I am really looking forward to reading some of these this year. And lastly, I have this giant biography of Dostoevsky. He's one of my favorite writers, and I want to learn more about his life. I think he had an interesting one. Believe it or not, this is actually the abridged version. This is the tiny version of this, but I think this will suffice. I'd also like to reread some of his books as I come across them in the novel, so we'll see. This could be a long-term project. I'm not committing to being done this book by the end of this year, but I certainly would like to make a dent into it. Some other authors I'd like to obsess over this year would be Samuel Beckett. You know, this cheerful looking guy. Should be fun, right? Waiting for Godot is one of my favorite plays, but I haven't read anything else by him. So I'd like to start with 3 novels. So this has Malloy, Malone Dies, and The Unnameable. And if I enjoyed that, I could move on to the Samuel Beckett Reader, which contains a lot of his shorter works. And if that goes well, I also have this giant biography. Another author I'd like to read more of this year is Virginia Woolf. After Christmas, I splurged and bought like 5 of the new vintage classics editions of her books. I don't know what it was. I think the Finn and me got excited. The covers are done by a Finnish designer who works for Marimekko, which is a famous Finnish design company. So 2 that I haven't read are Orlando and A Room with a View. So I'll definitely be getting to these 2. As well, I also have Mrs. Dalloway, The Waves, and To the Lighthouse. I'd like to reread at least 2 of these ones. I think Virginia Woolf novels are so dense and complicated, you could reread them a million times and you'd still pick out something new each time. So I would love to revisit some of these this year. And to wrap up, I have 3 short story collections I'd like to read. The first is 10th of December by George Saunders. He has his first novel coming out in February, and people are already gushing about it, but I feel like I'd like to work my way through some of his back catalog before I get to that novel. So I did Civil War Land in Bad Decline a few months ago, and next up is going to be 10th of December. I also have the collected stories by Grace Paley and what we talk about when we talk about love. So many contemporary short story writers are compared to Grace Paley and Raymond Carver, so I feel like I have to understand where these comparisons are coming from. These are 2 authors that are masters of the American short story, so I too want to read them so that I can be pretentious and compare every other author to Paley and Carver. Alright, so I'm going to cut myself off there. There are so many more books that I'd like to add to this list, but these are the ones that I'm hoping to really focus on in 2017. Let me know if you have any books that you are prioritizing this year, and once again, thanks for watching.